Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Executive Director of the Radio Television Digital News Association, Dan Shelley.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get started tonight, it seems only fitting that we observe a brief moment of silence in memory of Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi. Thank you. It was 61 weeks ago tonight, on October 15th, 1958, that arguably the world's most widely respected broadcast journalist of his time stood before a dinner event at the then RTDNA annual convention at the Mayfair Room at the Sheraton Blackstone Hotel in Chicago. He admonished those present, broadcast newsroom leaders and journalists from across the country, to use the power of radio and television journalism always to benefit the public by creating a more informed and educated society. Of the still nascent medium of TV in particular, as you just heard, he said that night, this instrument can teach, it can illuminate, yes, and even it can inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it's nothing but wires and lights in a box. But there's more to that quote. There is a great and perhaps decisive battle to be fought against ignorance, intolerance, and indifference, he said. This weapon of television could be very useful. Tonight, as we gather in the beautiful historic Gotham Hall in New York City, illuminated by the images of the man who articulated those words, we honor the television, radio, and digital journalists who during 2017 most exemplified the values of that intrepid founding father of our craft, Edward R. Murrow. And we celebrate both them and him. We do so at a time when saluting responsible journalism has never been more important. We are under near constant attack, rhetorically to be sure, but sadly in too many cases, as recently as this afternoon, also physically. At last year's RTDNA Edward R. Murrow Awards dinner and gala, I stood in this very spot and I uttered words that bear repeating tonight. No one in this room is a purveyor of fake news. No one in this room is an enemy of the American people. That unfortunate but utterly necessary piece of business now dispensed with, let's get started with the fun. It's my pleasure to introduce the Chairman of the Board of the Radio Television Digital News Association, Vice President of Local Content Development for Nexstar Media Group, Mr. Jerry Walsh.
Thank you, Dan. On behalf of the RTDNA Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome this, which is the largest audience for our annual Edward R. Murrow Awards Gala. For the first time in our history, this event was officially sold out. Thank you very much for being here tonight. But luckily, a number of people are watching tonight via the live stream on RTDNA.org, and we welcome them in here as well. What a terrific gathering to help celebrate you, the 118 National Murrow Award winners. But before we begin tonight, let me recognize the fact that some were not able to attend this dinner because of the ongoing coverage of Hurricane Michael. the deadly storm caused widespread damage to several areas, especially the Florida Panhandle. We have all seen the pictures, read the stories, listened to the people who rode out the storm. Our thoughts and our prayers are with those who have lost loved ones and been impacted by this storm. But while Hurricane Michael is a national story, the impacts of that storm were local. And tonight, as they have been since before the storm hit, local journalists are on duty, using digital, social, television, radio, and other media to inform. Responsible journalism on where basic life necessities can be obtained, life-saving information about power restoration efforts, medical care, and meals. And journalists are there to ask federal, state, and local leaders what is being done for those in need. It is a job which will go on for many months and years. But it's important to recognize these journalists are also local residents of the communities that were impacted. They too were victims. They're citizens of our great country. They have homes which were destroyed or damaged, families who were evacuated or are looking for a place to live. And they have the same life concerns of their news consumers. But there they are, on the job, reporting what their communities need to know. These news professionals symbolize our industry's important role and responsibility. They are an inspiration to us all, and I hope you will join me in sending our encouragement and appreciation as they continue to perform this valuable work. Tonight, we recognize those who have uncovered impactful stories, produced exceptional work for their news consumers. We honor newscasts which have contained life-saving information and offered local relevance, websites which demonstrated innovative ways to inform their users. And we recognize the long hours of work you put into producing that content, which has also inspired and educated your audiences. For just about every one of our winners here tonight, the journalism which we recognize started with an idea, a question, a thought, or a tip. And you, the winners, took that idea and did what thousands of professionals do each day in this country. You did your job, and our democracy is better thanks to your responsible reporting. Thank you for the great work you have done to serve your audiences and your local communities, and congratulations again to all the winners here tonight. So with that, let the fun begin. It's time to start handing out some of these 118 awards. So let's jump right in and present our first awards of the evening. This year's Student Murrow Awards showcase the best in storytelling and journalism. Breaking news on campus shootings, a multimedia feature on a tiny village for homeless women, a local sports legend's fight for survival, and an investigative probe into contaminated drinking water.
I think the elephant in the room was Bill O'Reilly's sexual assault allegations that have been in the news a lot the past week. So he was asked by one of the professors, what would he say to young women who wanted to go work at Fox News? I think Chris was very straightforward in the way he answered the question. Let's listen.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. It is unacceptable.
St. Anthony High School has worked miracle after miracle for 65 years. It is truly a Renaissance school. For a student that steps through its doors will not come out the same. And its survival is due to one man, Bob Hurley, whose commitment to the right way of playing and living has touched the lives not only of those who have played and worked for him, but of those who have never met him and are inspired by the wonders that he works.
A false report of an active shooter on campus sends a shock through the USC community.
The Las Vegas shooting is the worst massacre in U.S. history. We'll hear from LA residents who were there when it happened.
And turmoil hit home today. We'll talk with a spiritual leader about how to cope with chaos on campus and beyond. Annenberg TV News is next.
The future of our villages could depend heavily on how Kenton Women's Village works.
I hope it's successful. The neighborhood overwhelmingly backed it, and I hope the neighborhood was right, that we all made the right choice here.
I don't think that the pod and the village solution is the only solution. I think it has to be one of many.
They can't even concentrate on a good education because they're worried about drinking the lead in the schools. Well, I started getting into using music.
Don't drink the water, it's suicide. Not enough for the youth on the north side.
I was already making videos about get your water tested. I think it became more personal once I knew that my son was lead poisoned.
Some great work there. Accepting the award for the University of North Carolina School of Media and Journalism is Carolina Connection producer David Duchin. Accepting the award for WFUV Public Radio at Fordham University is broadcast journalist James Corgan. Accepting the award for the Carnegie Knight News 21 is Executive Editor Jackie Petchel. Accepting the award for the USC Annenberg Media is producer-in-residence Sam Burgum. Accepting the award for the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communications, filmmaker Zach Putnam. All right, with that, let's get a real professional in here to do the next batch of awards. Please join me in welcoming our next presenter this evening, NBC News correspondent Harry Smith.
Seriously, you don't have to get up. Please get back in your seats. Jeff, thank you so much. Give me a sec. One tiny, well done. Tiny suggestion. You know the category you're in. Don't wait for your name to be called to come forward. Yeah, not my first rodeo. All right, here we go. Next up is the breaking news category for radio. Reporters were on air for a solid 8 hours during Hurricane Irma on the scene of the deadly Amtrak train crash and live at the Las Vegas shooting as it unfolded.
The palm trees are bending. The wind is picking up and the rain is like bullets. They're advising us not to go outside. Some of the TV reporters have been stepping out for live shots, and that is no longer an option.
You were able to capture some sound so we can hear what that sounds like. Let's have a listen to that now.
A deadly derailment of an Amtrak passenger train in Pierce County today. The train plunged off a bridge, part of it hitting Interstate 5 below, startling motorists.
Looking up, seeing that a train had, come off the tracks and onto the highway itself, I think everybody was just really in shock.
Chaos and bloodshed at an outdoor country music festival on the Las Vegas Strip. At least 20 people were killed, more than 100 injured.
It was nothing like anything I've ever been through in my life.
We are looking at an excess of 50 individuals dead and over 200 individuals injured.
That would make this the deadliest mass shooting in American history.
Accept the award for WGCU is News Director Julie Glenn. Okay. Accepting the award for KHOU is Executive News Director Sally Ramirez. And KUOW could not be with us this evening, so we will accept the award on their behalf. For excellence in breaking news in television, in the television division, audiences saw team coverage of an unprecedented New Orleans tornado, a reporter's desperate attempt to save a trucker during Hurricane Harvey, and a developing story of a shooting at the Fort Lauderdale airport.
Here, that is a tornado. There it is. This is the tornado that moved over New Orleans east. Exactly. You expect to see this in the Central Plains. You don't expect to see this moving through our city.
The damage is bad and it's serious.
Hey, can you get to the top of your vehicle? Can you get to the top of your truck? Okay, the water here is it's going on 10 feet deep. You do not climb into the water. Are you guys headed down to the truck right here?
No, what do you think?
There's a truck driver stuck here in about 10 feet of water. Thank you.
I'm standing right at the entrance where those officers went in quite a rush with
put their arms. At the same time, some officers came out of Terminal 2 and told everybody that was on the upper deck, evacuate as fast as possible. Everybody took off running.
What we're watching is extraordinary. We saw people evacuate to the ramp, but what we're seeing now is people that appear to be undirected running actually across a runway.
Accepting the award for WDSU is News Director Akili Franklin. Accepting the award for KHOU is Executive News Director Sally Ramirez. And accepting the award for NBC is Vice President of News Specials, Bob Epstein. I can't believe how many people I have worked with over the years who are coming through this stage. Oh my gosh. And this year's Breaking News Digital winner, the New York Times, combined compelling visuals, rapid-fire audio, and detailed maps to show the breadth of Hurricane Harvey's impact.
Tropical storm Harvey is pummeling southern
Live here in Houston, where Harvey's rains keep coming.
It's not the initial impact, but the flooding.
Record-shattering rain, massive flooding, families stranded.
Waters keep rising.
This is just the beginning.
Hi, if anybody's out there and can hear us, please help.
I need a rescue. These are 3 kids, no food or water.
Do we have anyone in the Friendship area?
And accepting the award from the New York Times is senior story producer Alexandra Garcia. In our continuing coverage category for radio, we take a look at rural hospitals' struggles to stay afloat, hear of a shocking police shooting of an innocent victim, and learn personal stories of those affected by the immigration crackdown.
In 2005, the Missouri legislature passed sweeping cuts to its Medicaid program. More than 100,000 Missourians lost their health coverage. And for the Penobscot County Hospital, that was a huge deal because 40% of their patients were enrolled in Medicaid, and half of those lost their insurance in the cuts. But they didn't stop coming to the hospital.
So we're still providing care, but it's just that we're no longer being compensated.
At the scene of the shooting, next to an alley and in between nicely landscaped homes, neighbors brought chalk and drew colorful hearts and left messages on a driveway. Later, some added the names of people killed by police.
I'm here with my neighbors to honor her.
The BCA and the Hennepin County Medical Examiner have not released the victim's name or what led to her death.
So began a 48-hour odyssey that shows the lengths to which the Trump administration will go to round up people in the country illegally, whether they have a criminal record or not. The Border Patrol followed the ambulance as it raced to Corpus through desolate ranch land, carrying Oscar, Irma, and tiny Isaac with an IV in his arm and a tube in his stomach. Once they arrived at the hospital, the green uniformed agents never left the undocumented couple's side.
Accepting for KBIA is health reporter Bram Sable-Smith. Accepting for Minnesota Public Radio is Deputy Managing Editor Nancy Liebens. And accepting for NPR as Southwest correspondent, John Burnett. Crowdsourced journalism finds secretive pricing across the board in healthcare. An exhaustive investigation uncovers abuses of power, and the people of Puerto Rico face the perils of isolation in Hurricane Maria's aftermath. These are the winning continuing coverage entries for television.
In this uptown New Orleans office building, a vasectomy costs $2,500 when patients pay Dr. Ronald Swartz cash. A block away, two doctors, Neil Baum and Thomas Ewing, charge much less, $850.
When there's no transparency, it's invisible. So you don't know if you're getting ripped off or if you're getting a good deal.
There are a whole lot of texts between Judge Casey Moreland and his friend Natalie Amos that are so sexually explicit we can't show you on television. But we can show you what the judge sent her while he was in the business of dispensing justice on dockets for human trafficking and drug addiction. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are my busy days, hoes and junkies.
We saw no signs of government assistance. Maritza Rivera and her husband Marco returned across the river after making the 4-hour round-trip journey on foot to the nearest store to buy bread and rice for their children. Help us, she says.
May I just ask a question on the vasectomy story? I mean, do you really want to quibble about the price? Maybe the more expensive, never mind. Accepting for WVUE is anchor and chief investigative reporter Lee Zurich. Accepting for WSMV is investigative reporter Nancy Amons. And if you get a chance to meet Nancy Amons, the backstory of how this whole thing unfolded, amazing. They were on the air, I think, 30 days in a row with the story. Just fantastic. Accepting for CNN is correspondent Leila Santiago. Digital continuing coverage stories show the scope and toll of environmental pollution and what life is like for those on the Keystone XL pipeline.
It is unique here in Wilmington because in such close proximity in such a small area, and in an area where there is mostly Latino immigrant population who are poor, that these refineries are accumulating. It is environmental racism and environmental injustice.
The people call the Keystone Pipeline the Black Snake because it's evil.
President Trump coming in with his commitment to make America great again, this falls in that line, and it will create jobs and tax values.
If they would ever see the destruction that's happening in Alberta, if this pipeline means more development, I don't see how we're ever going to save the world from climate change.
Accepting for the Center for Public Integrity is CEO John Dunbar. That was not John, it's Serena Ramsey. Chief Development Officer. There you go. Accepting for Guardian US is Senior Video Producer Lawrence Matthew Lager. Tonight's winners for Innovation in Radio showcased a multimedia exploration of the Vietnam War, had listeners choose a feature on barriers to mental health access, and crowdsourced an investigation into Trump administration finances.
Look out for everybody till I get home. So I told him I would. And he said, I might not make it back. I watched him walk out of sight. I was going to walk with him. But he said, no, sis, I'm going tough, going away tough, you know. And so I let him walk away.
The center is her passion, and the work is deeply personal. Her son Peter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and took his life at just 27 years old.
I think one of the biggest problems for all of us who have psychiatric labels is that the stigma and discrimination are just incredibly big problems in our culture.
It was really fun to do research.
The data sets she's talking about are the financial disclosures of more than 400 Trump administration appointees and the president himself. It's a spreadsheet of all their businesses, their investments, and their outstanding loans.
Everything about Trump's experience in business is private. He has a very deep sense as a person that he has a right to keep this secret, and go to hell if you'd like to get it from him.
Accepting for WITF is multimedia producer Mike Williams. Accepting for WFDD is Assistant General Manager Molly Davis. And accepting for Reveal is reporter and producer Amy Walters. digital episodic investigations, deep dive data, creative animations, virtual reality, 360-degree live streams. These are just some of the tools employed by the innovation in television journalists.
He's in love. It's the car. It's not me. He won't follow me to the mailbox. He won't follow me anywhere else. He will not leave this car.
There are times when Holly slows down, that Lincoln slides in front, putting the brakes on the drive and Holly's day. Holly Schallberg will be known as the Mother Goose of Canyon County.
These powerful prescription drugs are now household names. The drug distributors, or wholesalers, are the middlemen in this process. They supply the quantity of drugs in your local pharmacies and hospitals. These are some of the most profitable companies in the world.
Oh my God, look at that. Let me go back to Miguel. Miguel, it's about to hit completely where you are, right?
Absolutely incredible. Look at the phone saying trying to take pictures of this thing. We are in full totality now. You can see these streams coming off of the moon. Jordan, if you would look up at the sky, this is absolutely incredible.
Accepting for KTVB is Director of Strategy and Innovation, Shanti Alsella. Accepting for WXIA is journalist Jeremy Campbell. And accepting for CNN is Vice President CNN VR, Jason Farkas. And it's circus music to bring the cars. Whatever. Okay. An immersive and powerful interactive profile of Syrian refugees and their newborn baby, and a gallery of stories highlighting the rise of maternal mortality. These are our innovation in digital winning entries.
NPR and ProPublica found many of the mistakes that lead to maternal death stem from a medical system that bases care on the idea that it's rare for a woman to die in childbirth. It's a system where funding and resources are directed mostly at saving babies. Joe Delaval watched his wife Jessica die in terrible pain 9 days after giving birth in an emergency cesarean to their third child, a daughter, stillborn.
Accepting for ProPublica is reporter Annie Waldman. And accepting for Time is supervising producer Justine Simons. Two things real quickly. Shh. Don't forget to eat your vegetables, and don't forget to come forward as your category is being announced. Have a good evening, everybody. Great advice. I told you, whoa, look at that. I told you we bring an expert out here. Hey, before we have dinner, we have one more award to give out in the breaking news category for radio. And by the way, ooh, that worked well. Accepting the award for CBS News Radio is CBS correspondent Steve Futterman. All right. That was a great reaction, by the way. We need more of that when the winners are announced. We're going to take a break for dinner, so you can enjoy that. We'll be back with the rest of our awards shortly. As you enjoy your entree, I'd like to recognize tonight's sponsors. The diamond sponsors, CBS News, CNN, Hearst Television, and Tegna. The platinum sponsors, ABC News, Netflix. The gold sponsors, CNN News Source, Raycom Media, and Youth Radio. The silver sponsors, the Charles Koch Institute, Cox Media Group, WSB-TV, NBC News, Nexstar Media Group, NPR, and The Washington Post. Enjoy your dinner. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Please welcome back the chairman of the Radio Television Digital News Association, Jerry Walsh.
Hello. If we could, again, just lower the volume in the room, please. Please. I know we're eating. We're having great conversation. But we have more awards to give out here tonight. We want to give good respect to our award winners that are coming up there right now. So if you could help us by just keeping the tone down just a little bit as you network throughout the evening here tonight. Also a reminder, as you see your categories come up on the screen, please come closer to the stage so that we can move you on and off the stage in an orderly fashion. With that, it's time to welcome our next presenter, correspondent for CBS Radio, Stephen Portnoy.
Good evening. With the indulgence of the prompter operator, if I might just say a few words, we are the inheritors of a public trust, and I'd like to say from this reporter a word of thanks to all of the bosses in the room, the women and the men who greenlight story pitches, who approve our travel, who take up legal fights on our behalf, who have difficult conversations with their higher-ups to enable the excellence that we honor tonight. It's my honor to be here to present awards on behalf of the journalists that you all employ. The first award is for creative use of sound in radio, and it highlights live audio description of stage events, an audio notebook of one of the most destructive wildfires in California history, and survivors' voices taking listeners into the chaos of the Las Vegas mass shooting.
There's a new way for residents to experience the theater in Richmond. Live audio description.
The actors dance up and down the aisles, jumping up and down. They throw confetti into the air.
This is my neighborhood, in flames, completely in flames.
Shots up us! Where are you at? Come on, she's disabled. All right, let me get her feet.
A police officer calls into dispatch. There's an active shooter.
16910 needs to be got. Shots fired. 4:15 ASF. Route to 91. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
Oh my God! This can't be happening. Go, 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 go!
It's 10:07 p.m.
Accepting for Community Idea Stations is senior editor and producer Catherine Cull. Accepting for KCBS Radio in San Francisco is reporter Doug Sovereign. Accepting for NPR News is Layla Fadal. Voice banking technology, which allows an ALS patient to communicate. Used guitar strings that bring hope and opportunity to at-risk women. And an in-depth look at Cuban families and Fidel Castro. Tonight's winners for use of sound in television.
To their great joy, the trees became thinner.
Since I still have my voice, we go at it.
What must I do? Asked the girl.
The goal is to take communication beyond the robot sound of the world's best-known ALS patient, physicist Stephen Hawking.
My advice to young scientists is to be curious and try to make sense of what you see.
Sometimes they sell out of the ones I make. It makes me feel really good. It just goes through so many hands and then onto someone's wrist. It carries on a story.
It's a full circle. Everybody's helping each other.
Thank you. Have a good day.
These women, we don't want them to go back to incarceration. We don't want them to go back to a life of addiction. They deserve a chance. Everyone does.
Castro has not been seen since he arrived in New York early Thursday morning. He has remained at the Cuban mission in Midtown Manhattan under the tightest security ever seen in New York.
Accepting the Edward R. Murrow Award for WAFB-TV is photojournalist Robert Hollins. Accepting for WTVF-TV is photojournalist Catherine Stewart. Accepting for Netflix is camera operator Drew Levin. Creative Digital Sound introduces us to musical Somali poetry and the story of a son who reclaims a musical legacy decades after the Holocaust.
I first got interested when I seen the video of my grandma doing it, like the Somali gabe. So like a circle, and there's a lady who's reciting the poetry, and there's women dancing in the middle of it. So I was just like, oh my God, what is this?
This music is asking for somebody to just invest it with a particular way of playing it. And I think there's who better than me?
Accepting for Ground Truth is Managing Editor Rachel Rohr. The Boston Globe could not be with us tonight, so I'll accept their award on their behalf. For excellence in video, we have 2 radio stories. Selfless volunteers from Connecticut pitch in after Hurricane Maria devastates Puerto Rico, and we take a peek inside a quirky collectibles empire.
We've been sitting on a couch on the sidelines waiting for things to get better. Needle really hasn't moved that much. We thought we could maybe do some help.
She doesn't know why she decided on the mustache cup exactly, but it was ground zero for a stockpile of stuff that continues to grow. The home that she and her late husband Ralph built in the 1950s is filled with a wide-ranging collection, everything from classy to kitsch.
Accepting for WNPR Radio is visual reporter Ryan Karen King. Accepting for Idea Stream is multiple media producer Mary Fecto. A 360-degree look at a terrifying base-jumping world record attempt. A journey to the top of high school football with a local legend. And marine time lapses and stunning aerial photography make up this year's Excellence in Video for Television interest. Miles has taken full advantage of his proximity to the Perrine Bridge.
All right, here we go, game on.
Having thrown himself from it,
3, 2, 1. See ya.
More than 3,000 times, making him the most prolific parachutist to plummet from high perches on the planet.
The Scots make the most of opportunities.
Yeah, man.
So that's why when this game was tied in triple overtime, the quarterback found a sophomore.
This was different. The coals were fluorescing. They're producing a chemical sunscreen to protect themselves from the heat.
Accepting for KTVB is anchor reporter Brian Holmes. Accepting for KING-TV is Director of Photography Andy Wallace. And accepting for Netflix is Director John Alpart. Probably not right. Drew Levin for Netflix. Beautiful piece. In this year's digital video category, we have two stories on the opioid crisis, personal accounts from those in the midst of the epidemic, and a look at how the heavy burden of heroin unfolds on a daily basis.
He said, Mommy, look, I promise you, Mommy, I will never do heroin again. He said, Mom, that stuff they got here today, he said, it's not heroin. He said, it's intentionally made to kill you.
By the end of the night, at least 20 people in Greater Cincinnati have overdosed. 4 have died.
It's important for voices to rise up and be heard. We're not just pawns or toys or consumers. We're people. We're humans. And we're dealing with a lot of suffering.
Accepting for the Cincinnati Enquirer is photojournalist and video producer Meg Vogel. Accepting for Now This is Melissa Fajardo.
Stephen, thank you very much. Now let's keep the show rolling here. Please give a warm welcome to our next presenter, National Desk Correspondent for NPR, Hanzi Lo Wang.
That's my table over there. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name's Hanzi Lo Wang with NPR. It is an honor. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. We're a little over an hour in. I hope you'll bear with me because we have some very award-winning categories. Our features category for radio recounts stories of a veteran's emotional visit to the Vietnam Memorial, a Girl Scout troop located in a homeless shelter, and one young man's experience in the foster care system.
My name is Jeff Butch. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Butch and the others are paying their respects to buddies lost long ago, who are forever young to the men standing before that simple name.
When I look at their names, I see their faces. You just kind of think you're coming here to honor them and to know that, hey, I didn't forget about you.
It's a Wednesday night at Mary's Place, a Seattle homeless shelter for families trying to get back on their feet. And a Girl Scout meeting is just getting started.
And to live by the Girl Scout law.
Kids just want to have a sense of normal. I think that this certainly brings some of that to them. And the goal of the troop is, once they transition out of the shelter, is to help them find a permanent troop.
Walking into court for my very last time as a foster youth, I feel like I'm getting a divorce from a system that I've been in a relationship with almost my entire life. I'm relieved to finally get away from a system that ultimately failed me on its biggest promise, that one day it would find me a family who would love me.
All right. So this is going to be a big moment for someone coming up here, so let's quiet down just a little bit here. Accepting the award for WITF is Multimedia News Director Tim Lambert. Accepting the award for Cairo Radio is features reporter Rachel Bell. And accepting the award for Youth Radio is reporter Noelle Anaya. This year's TV features offer compelling stories, such as an organ donor whose heart beats on in a grateful recipient, powerful lessons from a World War II vet who's seen it all, and a heart donation from a fan to his sports hero.
What's the secret to longevity, to living a long life?
Is being very active, whether it's golfing or walking or whatever, and eating properly and drinking your martinis.
Oh.
Jenny needed a new heart, and after 4 long months stranded in Seattle, she got the call. Joel Eggert's heart saved her life. The transplant was a success.
I would tell him, thank you for being an organ donor. Thank you for giving life back.
If I didn't get a transplant, I wouldn't be here today. I didn't want someone to die so that I could live, but I needed a heart.
2 decades after a chance meeting between 6th grader and Hall of Famer, Conrad Rulin would not only intersect with Caru's life again, but save it.
All right, this is someone's moment. Let's quiet down again. Accepting the award for Wayne TV is news director Ted Lind. Accepting the award for King TV is reporter Alex Rozier. Accepting the award for ESPN is reporter Gene Wojciechowski. All right, next category. Digital feature winners take us on an underwater expedition using drone cameras to create spectacular visuals and chronicle a severely premature baby's fight for life.
He may be the smallest baby you've ever seen, but this little guy's will to live is bigger than just about anything you can imagine.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Meet Kyle Abel Doxey, a fighter, a miracle,
hey buddy,
a survivor.
We as humans are looking all over the universe for alien intelligence, but maybe that alien intelligence is right here in the ocean, and
We just haven't been looking with the right attitude and the right approaches.
Accepting for East. Let's listen up. This is someone's big moment. Here we go. Accepting for East Idaho News is News Director Nate Eaton. Accepting for Quartz is West Coast video correspondent Eric Olson. All right, moving on to my neck of the woods, radio. Our radio documentaries take us to Vermont to examine the state's perceived whiteness. They travel down a unique and storied city block in Baltimore. And out in LA, I think we got Baltimore in the house, out in LA for a controversial look at the Trump National Golf Club.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that depending on where in Vermont you live, it's possible that you also haven't seen a person of color in a couple months. Think about it. Have you?
It's a beautiful state, but never has a black person said, hey, I got time off this weekend. Anybody want to go to Vermont?
That was Kenan Thompson on Saturday Night Live last year.
We're standing on the legendary, most notorious Emerson Avenue, Pulaski Street, 2100 block. Soul Sauce Restaurant. El Leoto Service. Emmy's Food Palace. Refuge Way of the Cross, Church of Deliverance. Cadillac Restaurant. God Tire Shop.
Best used appliances.
Best appliances in town. 2126 Emerson Avenue.
2101.
2111 Edmondson Avenue.
It's 2002. Trump has been through several bankruptcies at this point. It's before The Apprentice, and it's pretty early on in Trump's development of golf courses.
So what's happening is that we're starting to see the beginning of a pattern form in the way that he does business with these small towns and cities, which several golf experts told us is definitely not the norm.
All right, someone's big moment coming up. Here we go. Accepting for Vermont Public Radio is host and creator of Brave Little State, Angela Evansy. All right, I think we had Baltimore in the house earlier, right? Get ready, Baltimore. Accepting for WYPR is producer Aaron Henkin. All right, I think we have NPR in the house, right? Accepting for NPR is producer and editor of Embedded and my colleague, Tom Dreisbach. All right, moving on to the next category. A psychiatric street medicine program in Hawaii. Widespread abuse allowing rent-controlled tenants to be evicted in San Francisco. San Francisco in the house. And an in-depth and inside look into doping in sports. All of these stories make up this year's winning television documentaries.
every Wednesday for 5 years, the Institute for Human Services Psychiatric Street Medicine team tracked down both Donna Aborto and Binta Para to offer help. In both cases, it took about 250 individual encounters before they agreed to take medication for their schizophrenia.
We can go out and give somebody who's homeless on the streets all the Social Security benefits they want, but if we're not giving them medication and housing, we're not really helping them.
What we found, was pretty astonishing.
We spend 6 months going door to door to expose a loophole, allowing some landlords to make big bucks while getting away with fraud.
I don't know anything about it.
Tonight, we hold the powerful accountable.
Can you tell me how many cases you've actually looked into? I don't have a number for you, unfortunately. Is it possible that it's 0?
Did you start your program?
I did. This is my morning pill popping routine. And then I prepare the testosterone.
Yes, testosterone prepare me.
Yes, I still had no idea why Water Lab Director, who did all the testing for the Sochi Olympics, would agree to do this because his job was supposed to be to catch athletes.
We are imitating, we are reproducing Lance Armstrong scenario.
All right, someone's big moment. Here we go. Accepting for Hawaii News Now is reporter Allison Blair. Accepting for KNTV is investigative producer Michael Bott. Congratulations, sir. And here to accept for Netflix is director of photography and cinematographer and co-producer Jake Swanko. All right, how are we doing so far? Are we okay? Are we enjoying the Murrow Awards? Oh my goodness. I gotta fact check that. Are we enjoying the Murrow Awards? Okay. I'll accept it. There are a lot of categories. The perilous journey of undocumented immigrants into the U.S. and an opioid overdose gone viral, leading to a chance at redemption. These are tonight's winners for digital documentaries.
Not all of them will reach the U.S., but even when they end up getting stopped in Mexico and sent back home, it's just another obstacle to overcome on the long road north.
I am an immigrant and I ask for forgiveness. We don't want to do this, but we found ourselves in a place where we had to decide to die or to leave. I decided to leave.
There's no way that that little baby in diapers thought that 60 years later they would be overdosed in the middle of a city on a bus bench. And that's what drugs and alcohol do to you. They'll take you places you can't imagine. Life shouldn't be taken lightly.
All right, here's someone's big moment. Here we go. Accepting for time is editor-at-large for special projects, Paul Moakley. And finally, the Texas Tribune could not be with us tonight, so I will accept on their behalf. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, guys, here we go. More big moments to come.
running the gamut from a whimsical local story on cicadas to up-to-the-minute comprehensive reporting of the day's biggest events, radio newscast had it all covered.
The cicadas appearing now are what some people call stragglers. Cicadas that often appear years ahead of their next major emergence event.
You know, one idea is that they're just mixed up. They weren't paying close enough attention. Like a kid in school, they thought the test was next week, and it turned out actually to be today.
If you're just joining us, there was a truck attack in Lower Manhattan along the bike path along West Street this afternoon. It happened just after 3, about 3:10 this afternoon. We're told 6 people dead, at least 9 injured as this attacker drove a rented flatbed Home Depot truck along the bike path, striking pedestrians and bicyclists along the way.
An epic disaster is unfolding here in America's 4th largest city. Much of the Houston area is underwater as it takes a relentless pounding from what was Hurricane Harvey, putting people in their own homes in danger.
The current was getting hot. We had to bust the window to get out.
The flooding here is being called historic and unprecedented.
All right, here we go, guys. Another winner coming on stage. Accepting for WFIU is News Bureau Chief Sarah Whitmire. Accepting for WCBS is news anchor Steve Scott. And accepting for CBS News Radio is anchor of World News Roundup, Steve Kathan. Television newscasts were on the scene of a historic news event in Rochester, New York, a major Atlanta interstate collapse, and a raging Thomas Inferno in California.
We want to take you into the teeth of this March misery storm, and to do that, we go live to Chief Investigative Reporter Berkeley Breen in Irondequoit. Burke?
Hey, Brett, I'm on List Avenue, which is kind of in the heart of Irondequoit, but hold on to your hats, because I'm about to take you up to the lakeshore. Waves of Lake Ontario crashing into almost like a wall of ice.
The Channel 2 Action News manager captured this video right along the Buford Spring Connector. Traffic was still moving by the fire. Then came reports of heat so intense, drivers could feel it with their windows up, and northbound lanes just engulfed in flames. We launched News Chopper 2 and started what would become a nearly 5.5 hours of continuous breaking news coverage.
The Thomas Fire here is the largest of them. It's still claiming new neighborhoods tonight, forcing more families to flee. The 101 Coastal Highway shut down for a time today, flames right beside it. More than 5,000 firefighters battling the flames. And just look at this image from space tonight, it says it all. That is the smoke from these fires seen from the space station.
Accepting for WHEC, another one's big moment here, guys, tone it down. Accepting for WHEC is News Director Casey Clark. Accepting for WSB is News Director Misty Turnbull. A rather thorough gallery going on over there. And here to accept the award for ABC News and to share some brief remarks is news anchor and managing editor of ABC News World News Tonight, David Muir.
I just asked to make sure if I was going to be allowed to speak. They don't even let me do that on the newscast at night. At the end, I usually say, how much time do we have? And it's 5 seconds, 6 seconds on a good night. I just want to say, first of all, that we're grateful for this award because I think so much of what we do today has come under criticism and under attack in various different ways. And this award is from news directors and from producers and from reporters all over the country, and that means a lot. It's not all of us here on the East Coast or the West Coast judging each other. That happens every day. And I do want to keep my remarks short, but I do want to say one more thing, and that is every night I'm grateful to this team sitting over at this table over here. So many of them were with me on the weekend world news and came with me to the weeknights, and it's been an incredible journey. And we've added so many people along the way. And every night, and this is not unique to us, the lead story changes, 3 or 4 times in the final hour before air, and there isn't a moment at 7:02 when we get back down to the newsroom where we pat ourselves on the back and we say, we're the only ones who figured that out tonight. Because we recognize that our competitors down the street at CBS and at NBC are doing the same thing that we are every single night. We're trying to keep up, we're trying to break through the noise, and then I go home and I watch cable news do the same thing all evening long. So in this moment where we all feel as though we're under scrutiny, where our jobs are being questioned, please know that I go home and I watch all of your work and I enjoy it. And I think more important than ever, that we have each other's back. So this award is really for all of us. Thank you. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, CNN correspondent Leila Santiago.
Bring this down just a little. All right. Excellence in social media is created when storytelling, animations, photos, and video engage audiences across all platforms. Here are the winners for radio.
Farm communities are losing out to South Dakota cities. SDPB explores what this population shift means to your kids' education and school activities, your healthcare, politics, and neighborhood businesses, grocery stores to movie theaters. Join SDPB Thursdays in April for an in-depth look at the shift.
I said to him, please don't put me in a system. You know that I live right here. And then he asked me if I preferred to go to jail. To which I said, I think you can understand why I wouldn't like to be in the system. I also think you know that I don't want to go to jail tonight.
Accepting for South Dakota Public Broadcasting is Director of Radio, Kara Hetland. Accepting for WBUR is social media producer Elizabeth Gillis. And accepting for NPR is assistant producer Renee Clark. So 360 video is just one way that television uses social media to put viewers smack in the middle of a story.
We really wanted to give you a sense of what it's like to actually be on these islands, and so we're trying something new. If you go to ktuu.com right now or look at our Facebook page, you'll see we've posted a virtual reality or 360-degree video that is a mini tour of the places we visited, including those caves. You can try watching it through a virtual reality headset like this one, and that is all on ktuu.com right now.
Most of our neighborhood burnt down. We didn't think that was going to happen.
As North Korea continues to fire off missile tests and the US and South Korea flex their military might, it's the people who are once again caught in the crossfire.
Hey guys, it's Dina. Thanks for watching that video. You got a glimpse of what the US military is doing here in South Korea and the Koreans that are opposing it. Make sure you check out the next video in this series and like, share, and comment on this video.
And accepting for KTUU is investigative reporter Kyle Hopkins. And accepting for KNTV is digital managing editor Ria Bhattacharjee. And accepting for AJ Plus is senior presenter and producer Dina Takruri. That's got to be the best photo of the night. Digital social media, utilizing Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, creates new ways for audiences to play a role in shaping coverage.
They've posted it online in a project we're calling Citizen Sleuth, because we're asking citizens, like you, to check it out and see if everything adds up.
Well, I did a little bit of a survey of Jared Kushner's and Ivanka Trump's financial records.
She wants to make sure that high-level members of the government, like Jared Kushner, aren't shaping policy to benefit themselves.
هاي الطفل عم والله أنا في بالليل أحيانا لما ندفل خيمة بدي بحس من قلة الأكسجين بدي أغطس. طفلة حديثة الولادة بتحمل أجر. إلا هي بتاعت محل إيش بتعمل؟
On August 21st, 2017, a total solar eclipse traveled across the United States for the first time in 99 years. CNN wanted to be there to embrace the future and to push the limits of technology to make a national phenomenon an experience shared by the entire planet. Enter CNN VR.
And accepting for the Center for Public Integrity is a politics editor, Dave Leventhal. Accepting for time is supervising producer Justine Simons. Moving right along, creative writing can bring a story to life, connecting radio listeners with unique and imaginative content.
My future is to go to school.
She wants to study medicine. It's the kind of future her parents hoped for their children when they moved here before Daisy and her brother were born. Holding her dad's hand, Daisy says when President Trump was elected, she began to worry her parents could be deported.
Usually I try to, avoid the conversation because it's very sad to me.
Little Bobby Knievel was the kind of kid you'd probably medicate now. An ornery, reckless young man always in trouble with the law. He tried mining, got fired, insurance, got bored, wound up selling Honda motorcycles. He did stunts to promote that business, jumping over stuff like mountain lions, boxes of rattlesnakes, and then trucks.
Can't touch him. Some folks want a big discussion, not some emails to some Russian. But he stands above the law, sits in the White House after all. The man in the White House comes from Queens. He knows what collusion means. He knows what it means and it don't mean him. That's why he fired Jim. Had to send him into retirement. It was a hostile work environment.
Okay. And accepting for KAZU is reporter Erica Mahoney. Accepting for KCUR-FM is senior editor and national correspondent Frank Morris. Accepting for CBS News Radio is writer and commentator Dave Ross. Moving right along, excellence for writing and television crisscross the globe from small market gems in Iowa to Scotland's tiny Isle of Eggs and its feisty citizens.
Ruth Bushnell turned 60 Friday. Her boy, knew a simple birthday call from Germany wouldn't cut it. So he packed up his young family and flew 4,000 miles for an 8-block ride around Pella's Square.
He blew out candles, hugged everybody. It's a blast for me! And had you been driving by from a distance, perhaps you would have noticed the gathering in the Arco parking lot. But how would you have known that it was a bunch of people remembering how good it feels to take part in another human being's happiness? Someone whose heart is pure.
We would have liked to stay longer in this stress-free, non-conflict zone where everyone seems to be more or less on the same page. But we were out of clean laundry, we had a ferry to catch, and hamster wheels to jump back onto. As for the people of Egg, I don't think they were sad to see us go.
Accepting for KCCI is anchor Eric Hansen. Accepting for Como is news anchor Eric Johnson. And accepting for CBS News is 60 Minutes Executive Editor Bill Owens. Digital writing winners took viewers to the underbelly of sex trafficking in Texas to a trip down Boston's iconic Route 1. Take it out.
In Jean's case, social workers at her group home did call the police as soon as they realized she was missing that day. But by then, she'd already been taken in by a pimp, Jasmine Johnson. Jean didn't have an ID. She was only 15. She says Jasmine told her she had only one other choice: selling sex.
Route 1 in Saugus is an asphalt graveyard of Americana, from a time when America meant big, when going out meant a Delmonico steak and an iceberg lettuce salad served up beside a giant neon cactus. Route 1 is nostalgia and loss. Maybe you can't have one without the other.
And the Boston Globe and Texas Tribune could not be here this evening, so I will accept this on their behalf. We'll move right along. Radio websites incorporate in-depth reporting, breaking news, features, and investigations to bring web-based journalism alive.
When Hurricane Irma swept through Florida, the power was knocked out to thousands of people in the Gainesville area. WUFT News reporter Luke Sullivan found out that even more than 3 months after the storm, some families are still in the dark. This week, we dedicate our entire podcast episode to one family's story of life without electricity.
Accepting for WUFT is multimedia news manager Ethan Majok. And accepting for KUT is digital editor Stephanie Federico. scrolling interactives, live blogs, virtual reality, and cutting-edge innovation makes these television websites must-see online news destinations.
With the stroke of a pen, President Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. It allowed the Army to remove people of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast. The Army said they posed a military threat. They were loaded onto buses and trains and shipped to desolate concentration camps. 62% of them were American citizens.
On August 21st, 2017, a total solar eclipse traveled across the United States for the first time in 99 years. CNN wanted to be there to embrace the future and to push the limits of technology to make a national phenomenon an experience shared by the entire planet. Enter CNN VR.
All right, accepting for KOMU is a news director, Randy Reeves. And accepting for King TV is Director of Digital Media, Yvonne Terziski. And accepting for CNN is Senior Vice President and Editor-in-Chief, Meredith Artley.
All right, on with the show. Please join me in welcoming our next presenter, who's already been on this stage before, the anchor and managing editor of ABC News World News Tonight, David Muir.
In 2017, radio stations spanned the globe to report on hard news stories, including the plight of the gay community being targeted in Chechnya, the fate of Illinois sex offenders, and border jumpers fleeing the U.S. for Canada. Take a look.
Royal Canadian Mounted Police are reporting a flurry of illegal crossings into Canada in recent months. Officials say Quebec has seen the highest influx of people seeking asylum, with many walking across on snowy, remote areas west of Lake Champlain. BPR's Kathleen Masterson went to a crossing site in the woods and found people often take a cab to the border.
Thousands of men are being held in Illinois prisons long past the end of their sentences, which is costing the state tens of millions of dollars a year. Those men are facing the rest of their lives in prison, even though no judge ever gave them that sentence. The men who find themselves in this situation, they're sex offenders.
Gay men have been rounded up in the Russian province, detained, tortured. Their families have been shamed. Chechnya is predominantly Muslim, and homosexuality isn't tolerated. Arnie believes that the only reason his uncle didn't kill him that day was that he was already on the verge of death.
Accepting for Vermont Public Radio is News Director Kathleen Masterson. Accepting for WBEZ is news producer Max Green. and accepting for NPR as co-host of NPR's Morning Edition. And up first, David Green. Nice to put a face to the name. A civilian steps into a policeman's shoes to face a life and death situation. A grieving husband mourns the death of his wife and children. And U.S. and Afghan forces try to beat back at Taliban insurgents. These are the stories that made TV hard news headlines.
The man pulls a knife and starts coming at him.
Ceasefire, ceasefire. Did you even think about trying to shoot an arm?
Oh no, at that point there was like too much going on.
Right.
So. Why not leg? Because there's no time, like really there is no time to think about it.
Ryan is starting to stitch a life back together. He even occasionally allows himself to think about having a family again.
Yeah, I have hope to have a wife and kids again someday.
As improbable as it seems, Ryan doesn't blame Jen. Jen was sick. Depression is a sickness, and that sickness is to blame.
That target is approved. Primary target's getting ready to exit. All right, guys, call out any collateral concerns, please.
So the general's just approved the target. They've seen a weapon on the man's shoulder, and they've surmised that he's now far enough away from the building to actually carry out the strike. The Taliban are using that strength wisely, hiding during the day, and launching attacks under the cover of darkness.
Accepting for News Center Maine is multimedia journalist Chris Costa. That's Devin Crawford, by the way. Co-producer. You know, the whole World News Tonight team wanted to come up with me too. Maybe in a couple years, if it happens again. Accepting for my favorite station in Denver, KMGH, is primary evening anchor Shannon Ogden. That's James Doherty, the photographer. We got a trend started here. Accepting for, and they're doing really great work, Vice News correspondent Sebastian Walker. I love when Vice News gets the award, they play the 80s jazz music. Sort of a disconnect. Digital hard news reporters followed Mexican students on a controversial journey across the border into the U.S. for schooling. Took an inside look at the pros and cons of police body cameras as well. Take a look.
It's a way of life for most people here. American kids living in Mexico, crossing the border daily to go to school in the U.S.
95 and 100% of those kids are going to end up living in the United States as adults. I want to make sure that they're employable, that they can get a job, they can pay taxes, they can contribute.
Michael Brown's death 2 years ago, that was a moment where there was a really strong call for a public lens into what's happening.
If the police chief is not willing to give us the transparency, then we got to do what we got to do as a group.
Police body cameras became the solution.
Accepting for Circa News is Chief Investigative Photographer Alex Brower. Larry Lazo. Accepting for the New York Times is senior story editor Liz Balin. These radio news series examine why Alabama is ground zero for what's wrong with rural health care, which, as we all know, is a huge story in this country. They attempted to sort through the nightmare that mass transit can present, and they took an in-depth look at America's fentanyl crisis.
People are doing without the health care that they need because there are not facilities and people don't have the money.
54 of Alabama's 67 counties are considered rural. That includes Julia's hometown, which looks like a slice of middle America. Rural health advocates say 7 of these counties have no hospital at all. That includes Coosa County, which doesn't even have a doctor.
All you have to do is walk up to a random person in a train station.
Tell me how it's been lately. Been a nightmare every day.
You even hear it above ground these days. You hear it almost every day right here.
Again, Amtrak power problems at Penn Station. Before you take mass transit, which everybody tells you to because it's the right thing to do ecologically and environmentally, hold up. There's problems again this morning.
Inside the apartment, officers are searching for something so lethal and toxic that law enforcement can't afford to take any chances.
We're just securing everything right now.
Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid often mixed with heroin, but 50 times more powerful, and leaving a deadly trail across the nation. Fentanyl-related deaths have nearly doubled. The crisis is getting worse.
Accepting for Alabama Public Radio is News Director Pat Duggins. Accepting for WCBS is news producer Rivka Oppenheim. And accepting for ABC News Radio is a friend, a journalist, and always the gentleman, Pierre Thomas. In the television series category, topical issues included President Trump's border wall and those most impacted, our lead story tonight, the skyrocketing prices of medical procedures, and the humanitarian crisis in Bangladesh's refugee camps, of course, the Rohingya.
Where this bend starts in the calm Pacific Ocean is where the political turbulence begins. This dividing line separates the United States from Mexico. This place is not seen by most Americans, and most don't know what really goes on here.
They don't tell them the dangers of crossing the border illegally.
One of the more than 500 submissions to our crowdsourced database, a database that has helped us uncover massive charges for everything from urine drug tests and common surgical procedures to ER codes and CT scans, and maybe most importantly,
Within days after you got involved, the bill was dropped by $4,800 some.
we found errors.
Disturbing reports emerging of a new wave of attacks unleashed by government forces in Myanmar on the Rohingya, a Muslim minority considered one of the most persecuted groups in the world. Reports of villages surrounded, homes burned to the ground, torture, executions, and rape.
Accepting for KGPE TV is News Director Chad McCollum. Accepting for KUSA TV is investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen. Katie and Nicole, my other favorite station in Denver. And accepting on behalf of ABC News is a correspondent who really did singular work with producer Christine Romo, my friend Bob Woodruff. Wow, that's a full circle moment for me. An enthusiastic fan base for Reno's first soccer team, the Arizona Diamondbacks' iconic organist, a Paralympic archer. These stories captivated sports radio listeners.
A sea of blue and yellow stops traffic down Virginia Street as fans bang drums, wave flags, and chant at the top of their lungs. We out here for Reno! Every game day, the brigade meets at the iconic Belize sign at Reno City Plaza 1 hour before kickoff. From there, about 50 or more people march through town into the Greater Nevada field.
When it's time for the seventh inning stretch, Bobby draws a big crowd.
He really can play the organ. He is good.
I thought this was really fun.
Bobby agrees. He says he'll be happy to do this job forever.
I don't have any plans for retirement. Why would you retire from something you truly love and you've loved your whole life?
That was the day I decided that I want to be known as the best archer in the world, followed by, oh, by the way, did you know he does it with no worms?
Stutzman began practicing 8 hours a day, every day.
The next thing I know, it's 2012, and I'm getting ready to shoot the Paralympic trials, and I ended up winning all trials.
Accepting for KUNR's multimedia bilingual journalist Stephanie Serrano. Let's hear it for table 39 and Stephanie. She was like, they put me in the back. Accepting for KTAR's reporter anchor Sharon Middleman. And accepting for NPR and WBUR's producer Gary Wallach. From the Iowa Wave to pro teams rallying around young cancer patients, television sports both inspire and, of course, they humble us as well.
Every June, Jackson's Brew Crew Park hosts a weekend wiffle ball tournament.
The smash to the shortstop.
The proceeds go to Grace, Greater Richland Area Cancer Elimination.
They're going through what I did, and I know the community helped me, so I wanted to help the community too.
When he was 4, he started playing soccer, and then he wanted to play baseball, and then he wanted to play football.
For mom and dad, worried doubt to astonishment.
He gets past every hurdle.
And prosthetic after prosthetic.
Zach Proof is sort of our term around here.
This kid continued to break the mold.
At the top of the Children's Hospital, there's a ton of kids who are watching the Hawkeye game.
I saw everybody turn over to the Children's Hospital, and it was really a special moment for everybody in that stadium.
Love that story. Accepting for Wisconsin Public Television is producer Trevor Keller. Ryan Ward was the photographer on that. Accepting for WEWS TV is reporter Tara Molina. And accepting for the Big Ten Network is feature producer Kevin Ritchie. Bill and John, also up here accepting. This year's Digital Sports Entries takes a critical look at America's long and fraught relationship between sports and race in America.
The real enemies of my people are right here, not in Vietnam.
In 1968, we had already determined that we're going to organize a movement to focus on the Olympic Games for purposes of bringing to the forefront in the international arena issues of freedom, justice, and equality for black people in this country.
Accepting for Retro Report and The New Yorker is executive producer Kyra Darden. I'm done. I'm just trying to move this along quickly. Thanks for having us tonight.
All right, guys, you've been great, giving your attention to all our honorees here tonight. Now please give a warm welcome to our final presenter of the evening. There you go. Co-host of CBS This Morning Saturday, Michelle Miller.
Good evening, fabulous people. You feeling good tonight? I'm impressed, really impressed. And I have some great news for you all. We're 30 minutes ahead of schedule. As I said, I'm thrilled to be here, and it has a lot to do with why all of you are in the room. And I get the sincere pleasure of talking about something near and dear to my heart. Investigative journalists, they dig deep. These radio winners went behind the scenes to sex trafficking, illegal bail bonds, and shady local politicians to get to the truth.
Only WDEL has obtained the 23-page secret report by HR expert Tricia Clendenning, who determined there was credibility and merit to Maxwell's claims that she was harassed by her boss. Maxwell described a bipolar personality in Hartley Nagel, saying, "I never knew who I was going to get." She says Hartley Nagel called her dumb and an idiot, had her advisor ask whether she needed to change her prescription medications, and asked her if she needed to call her mommy.
If you get arrested and thrown in jail, you're probably desperate to get out. To a bail bond agent, your desperation is a business opportunity. But there are rules those agents have to follow to get your business. 2 years ago, Santa Clara County authorities arrested 31 bail bonds agents for breaking those rules with the help of jail inmates.
Texas has especially big problems. Every week, more than 20 kids run away from foster care here. A lot of them end up on the street and find themselves forced to sell sex to survive. Our partners at the Texas Tribune have been investigating why so many foster kids end up being exploited by traffickers and how the child welfare system fails kids like Jean.
Accepting for KQED is criminal justice reporter Suey Lewis. Accepting for WDEL FM AM is Assistant News Director Amy Cherry. And the Texas Tribune could not join us, so I will accept on their behalf. How about that? I know a little bit of something about this. A corrupt Louisiana State Police force, Texas nursing homes staffed by criminals, and drug giants fueling the opioid epidemic. These are the stories that had TV investigative audiences tuning in.
And look at the name printed below it, Mike Edmondson. While the superintendent claims he didn't know about the trip, it appears he signed off on at least one expense report, essentially approving one employee's side trip through the Grand Canyon in Vegas, paid for with your money.
It's an embarrassment. They all ought to hide their heads in a bag.
Both of their nurse aides had previous criminal records. One pled guilty to fraud and drug charges, and the other confessed to 2 counts of assault causing bodily injury. The nursing home hired them anyway.
To allow that to happen to her like that, I mean, she can't do anything. Why would they do that?
Because in Texas, they can.
Since the 1990s, McKesson has made billions from the distribution of addictive opioids.
McKesson was supplying pharmacies and doctors that were fronts for criminal drug rings, and pills were ending up on the black market.
They're killing people. And their motive? This is all for financial gain.
Accepting for WVUE TV is my old colleague, anchor chief executive reporter Lee Zurich, whose uncle, should I even go there? Point of personal privilege, what can I say? Accepting for WFAA TV is investigative reporter Charlotte Huffman. And producer Mark Smith. I'm having too much fun. And accepting for CBS News and the Washington Post is 60 Minutes correspondent Bill Whitaker. Woo, woo, woo! Digital investigative journalists exposed a controversial recovery program for addicts that some called slave trade, and raised more questions than answers on how to respond to Russian election interference.
I bought a horse trailer that was stolen. Instead of going to prison, they sentenced me to go to CARE.
CARE. Christian Alcoholics and Addicts in Recovery.
It was just a slave camp, that's all it was.
They work full-time churning out chicken for some of the country's biggest names. If men get sick, hurt, or work too slowly, they are threatened with prison.
Almost 5 months after he first learned of Putin's plans, Obama took action.
The Obama White House now imposing sanctions and naming names. Some Russian agents will have to leave the U.S. in 72 hours.
Some are calling it a parting shot at Russian President Vladimir Putin just weeks before President Obama leaves office.
President Obama says all Americans should be alarmed by Russian interference in the election.
Accepting for reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting is reporter and producer Amy Walters. Are we on the right? We're on the right. Question for my producers. Are we on the right award? I don't have my earpiece in. We're good. Accepting for the Washington Post is executive producer for original video, David Bruns. Radio takes listeners to both distant places and to their own backyards to capture voices whose stories aren't usually heard. Here are this year's overall excellence winners for radio.
Drop the knife! So this type of scene, an armed man who's intoxicated and in a desperate mental state, this plays out year after year in New Hampshire.
A 14-year-old student was raped by an older student in a secluded hallway during school hours.
This is a violent crime.
Even more troubling, she said, was the fact that parents like her had no idea anything like this happened at their child's school, because the school never told them. But as far as state law is concerned, the school didn't have to.
What's your hat say?
Make America great.
So far, everyone here at Dunkin' Donuts is a Donald Trump supporter. And the minute John Cosgrove steps through the door, he knows he's in the lion's den.
Angry shouts of shame were directed at Charlottesville's leaders during last night's city council hearing as residents blasted the handling of last weekend's white nationalist rally.
2, 1, go!
Returning champ Molly Schuyler did not disappoint at Z Burger in Tenleytown. Standing in the sun, she managed to down 21 burgers in 10 minutes.
I was sluggish today. I ate 28 last year.
Thousands of protesters taking part in the Women's March are now making their way past the White House.
Thank you, Virginia!
How sweet it is!
Wow!
Congressman Steve Scalise is in critical condition after undergoing surgery for a gunshot wound was suffered when a man opened fire on this morning's Republican congressional baseball team practice in Alexandria, Virginia.
Chaos and bloodshed at an outdoor country music festival on the Las Vegas Strip. At least 20 people were killed, more than 100 injured.
Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning.
Former FBI Director James Comey is testifying right now.
It's my judgment that I was fired because of the Russia investigation. I was fired in some way to change the way the Russia investigation was being conducted.
Accepting for New Hampshire Public Radio is reporter Todd Bookman. Accepting for WTOP Woohoo FM is Director of News and Programming, Michael McMurdy. And the entire WTOP team. And accepting for CBS News Radio is General Manager Craig Swagler.
Thank you. This award is extremely important to the talented and hardworking journalists at CBS News Radio. Every day, they uphold the highest standards in excellence and original reporting. I want to thank our President David Rhodes and Ingrid Cipriani-Matthews for continued support of the audio medium in news. A special recognition to Charlie Pavlunas, our CFO, for his continued support of CBS News Radio and its continued legacy. This year we mark our 80th year on air, and because of his belief in radio, we are the DNA of CBS News. And we continue to bring the best content to our listeners and our affiliates. Recently, a legendary talented voice at CBS left us, Dave Barrett. Dave was a trendsetter. He was fast-paced and pushed boundaries in how he used sound. All of us at CBS News miss him for his infectious energy and his transformative storytelling. Dave, this is for you.
The hallmark of great television reporting is covering both national and community issues through a local lens. These winners of overall excellence in TV succeed in challenging, informing, and surprising their audiences on a daily basis.
Today marks a historic moment nationally as President Donald Trump declares war on the opioid epidemic.
This announcement comes on the same day as we here at 13WREX launch a month-long series called Hooked. The opioid epidemic hits home. It is an epidemic.
100% epidemic. And that's created havoc in our community.
A dream is a wish your heart makes.
It's so pretty.
These young girls have a lot of dreams, and their hearts are set on finding a perfect dress.
And you get to dress up as Cinderella.
Just to see her get excited about something makes me excited.
This is a big day before the big night to remember. Finding the perfect prom dress.
Fires raging across Northern California.
Most of the people are leaving their homes. This is a big event.
Tens of thousands of acres burned in more than a dozen separate fires.
Gender dysphoria is when a person's sex at birth conflicts with their gender identity.
I still don't really feel comfortable in my body, but I feel like I know now why I'm uncomfortable.
People who live in Portola say that they have never seen flooding like this in their town.
We had so much snow and then the rain, and I knew it was going to do this, and but I've never seen it like this.
We have to give some credit to the American people that they're somewhat intelligent and that they know the difference between an opinion show and a news show.
Yeah.
You're cynical. Look at it.
I am cynical because,
You think we're bad for America? You think I'm bad for America?
Yeah.
In a 6-month investigation you'll see only on CBS this morning, we traveled to the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs to investigate sexual assault in the service academies.
You called him sick and bad.
Look, you can figure it out yourself. He was very nice to me with words, and when I was with him, but after that there has been no relationship.
But you stand by that claim about him?
I don't stand by anything.
How about that? Accepting for WREX TV is News Director Josh Morgan. Accepting for KCRA TV is KCRA 3 News Director Lori Walden. And accepting for CBS News is my boss, Executive Vice President Ingrid Cyprian Matthews. Ingrid has a few things to say right now.
Hi there. Congratulations to all the honorees tonight. This is a really proud moment and a great evening for journalism. Thank you to the RTDNA for honoring CBS News Television and CBS News Radio. Every day we walk into CBS News just as Edward R. Murrow and so many others before us did, because we believe in the work, in the mission, and the brand that is CBS News. We share a common goal of journalistic excellence, integrity, truth, and service. This week alone, CBS News journalists are reporting from across the country and globally, some in hostile environments, where the danger is overt, others in places where journalists are simply not welcomed. But we are there for the stories that are waiting to be told, a responsibility we take to heart, a mission we take seriously. Real journalists reporting real news intentionally and accurately. The past few weeks have taken our reporters to Chile, to Afghanistan, Australia, Iran, Turkey, Mexico, Zimbabwe. We've gone from the Kavanaugh hearings to the southern states, areas impacted by Hurricane Michael, to cities around the country where people are preparing for the midterm elections, to the streets of Istanbul, where we continue to investigate what actually happened to fellow journalist Jamal Khashoggi. It was 227 years ago that the First Amendment was adopted, giving us the freedom to do our jobs as journalists. Yet today, we find ourselves reaffirming the right to a free press. As we exercise those rights on a daily basis, we have to be purposeful in reporting the stories taking place in regions where there is no such right to a free press. On behalf of my CBS News colleagues who are here tonight, for those in the newsroom back in New York, and for those working locations around the world, we thank you for these honors. Thank you, my dear.
Amen. With innovative, state-of-the-art formats and journalistic integrity, people, these overall excellence and digital winners set the standard for quality and an unwavering commitment to viewers.
Baked alive at Rikers Island, an inmate found dead in a cell where the temperature had soared.
There appears to be a battle heating up about the temperature at the Norfolk City Jail.
It's a national issue, but I've come to Texas because I hear it's the epicenter. He received a call from the prison chaplain.
He said, "Mr. Webb, I'm sorry to inform you that your brother was found naked, stripped down, laying on the floor, trying to get air. He died from massive heat stroke."
The prisons are not built for the comfort of the inmates. They're built to be secure, and we're not going to air condition them. One, we don't want to. Number two, we couldn't afford it if we wanted to.
Zatodasi Babantum. Yang besan di Bembuli. Dari mana hostel Sogi?
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
이 한 나라의 최고 통수권자가 이 땅에 망발을 제쳤는데 우리가 그렇게 하면 거기에 대해서 가만히 있어야 됩니까?
Accepting for the Marshall Project is Editor-in-Chief Bill Keller. And accepting for the New York Times is Director of Core News Video, Mark Scheffler. And his fabulous team. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Up next, Jerry Walsh.
All right, guys, before we wrap it up here for tonight, I do want to acknowledge our excellent staff at the RTDNA, Dan Shelley, who you heard from earlier in the evening, as well as our entire board of directors that are here tonight and also watching online. Appreciate all of their support. But also behind the scenes here, Karen Hansen, Tara Puckey, Kate McGarity, and Kate Spachenko. They are the soul of this organization. They did an excellent job tonight, so let's give them all a round of applause. So this concludes our night, and by my watch, 30 minutes early. So there you go. We had some pad time built in there. Thank everyone for joining us this evening, and congratulations once again to all the winners. We hope to see you at our next major event in Washington, D.C., March 13th, 2019, for the annual First Amendment Award Dinner. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks very much.